Ari Aster is an up and coming young director who's already directed two feature films for A24. He directed 2018's Hereditary and 2019's Midsommar. Those two films have already sort of become cultural staples in terms of films. They were independent films, had very small budgets, but for the impact that they made upon release, they have certainly, I would say, permeated the cultural conversation as it relates to movies. There's imagery and things that happen in those two films that we still talk about to this day. You know, you can't really talk about horror films in the modern day context without talking about that almost transcendent performance from Toni Collette, right? You can't talk about iconic imagery in movies without referencing what Florence Pugh accomplished with the May Queen. So I think that those two films have a very, very special place. And for that reason, I know you and I were certainly looking forward to Beau Is Afraid because Ari Aster has proven himself to be really a master of his craft already. He even got co-signment from Martin Scorsese, who really championed Hereditary back when it came out. And then in addition to that, Joaquin Phoenix is one of the finest actors working in the world. He's coming off of an Academy Award win. His most recent feature film, which came out, Come On, Come On, is a film I know we both really, really enjoyed. So this just seemed like a match made in heaven. Joaquin Phoenix, one of the world's best actors, pairing with Ari Aster, one of the most promising newcomer directors. It just seemed like a recipe for potentially another masterpiece. Now, Beau Is Afraid had a limited release this past weekend in Los Angeles and in New York. It hasn't had its wide release officially. That'll happen this weekend, but we did decide to go ahead and check out this movie a little bit early and provide our thoughts here. So with all of that out the way, man, I will pass it over to you. What did you think about Beau Is Afraid?
Where to start with this absolutely over the top, ridiculous, crazy movie, man. First and foremost, Ari Aster has lost his marbles. I told Jordan that like 5 times leaving the theater because this dude really has lost it. But in some ways, you expect that from him now, right? Hereditary and Midsommar, I know a lot of people found crazy or ridiculous, or like, I actually know a lot of people who could not get with Midsommar. It just wasn't for them. I know a decent amount of people who are like that. And if you didn't like that, I honestly don't know how you going to feel going into Beau Is Afraid, because this is Hereditary and Midsommar at least feel like a normal movie to some degree. There's at least some sort of structure there, right? No matter how crazy and ridiculous it is, there's some kind of structure there. Beau Is Afraid, throw all the structure out the window. This is just Ari Aster doing whatever the hell he wants to do. I remember there was a moment I thought Midsommar was the movie that Ari Aster always wanted to make, but he had to make Hereditary first to get there. I think I'm wrong again. I think I'm wrong twice. Now I think this is one of the movies that he's always wanted to make, because there is no boundaries, because there is no there is no kind of structure that he followed really for Beau Is Afraid. This really is just, I am going to make a movie without any kind of, again, obstructions or chains. And this is the product, man. Beau Is Afraid is literally the mind of Ari Aster and how he thinks. It really is. This movie it's dark, it's funny, it's silly at times. It's silly a lot of times, actually. It's actually really goofy, low-key, but it makes sense in the context of what's going on. And it's a psychological thriller. There's horror in it, there's references, there's so much happening in this film. And because of all of that, I don't know how to recommend this movie to people, because I want to recommend this movie to everybody. At the same time, I know people will not have the patience to watch this 3-hour movie of confusing ball of whatever this is. And so it's a really weird feeling, trying to explain this film. But what I will say, man, is overall, I like it. I do. I actually like this film because of all the swings that Ari Aster takes, because of the non-conventional things he does in this film. Every 20 minutes is a new movie. It's just what he does. It is how his mind is pivoting. It's like ADD. It really is. It's like, how can I talk about all of these issues and have this character, Beau, go through all of these things and make them seem like a different kind of ridiculous every time. This movie really is about the character Beau trying to get to his mother, and all of these weird random things pulling him to make it so he's not arriving at his mom's house instantly, to making it so he's late, or to making it so he has to go on a weird adventure to get to his mom's house. And it's crazy. It really is. It's crazy. It's fun. You won't understand. Everything won't work for you in this film. Every scene won't work for you. Some things just are not going to make sense to you. That's how the movie, I think, is structured. But there's a visual achievement here. There's oh, I enjoyed that 20 minutes. Oh, there's a Joaquin Phoenix is acting his ass off for the entire film kind of thing. There's man, I really like that sequence. Ooh, that sequence didn't work for me all the way, but the one after it, I understood what you was trying to say, Ari Aster. So it really, it's a ball of emotions. It's a ball of confusion. It's so much to unpack and to talk about and to really wrap your head around when it comes to this film. I honestly can't wait to the second viewing of this movie. It really is like that. Like, I really just want to go in and not even trying to understand, because I don't think that's what this movie is even necessarily for you to understand everything either. In fact, the beginning of the movie, I think everyone at the beginning of the movie is trying to figure out the world that Beau exists in. There's there's so much happening around him. There's a ton of crime happening around him. There's people that are doing crazy things around him. And you could tell the world is in disarray. And again, at the beginning of the film, I feel like people are trying to figure out what the world is about. But then Ari Aster is like, nah, bro, you focusing too hard on that. And he does it over and over and over. And he says, stop trying to figure out what this movie is, because technically it's not anything and it's everything. I know it sounds crazy, but I think it makes sense to people who have seen the movie. So again, I recommend it. I don't know. I don't think it'll work for everybody, but I do recommend it to everybody. And man, Ari Aster, man, what a crazy guy.
Well, Ari Aster has accomplished something that not really many filmmakers can accomplish as it relates to watching their work. And this is probably one of the handful of times, and it's hard to even think and fathom this, but this is one of the handful of times where I watched a movie. I started off very intrigued, nearly loving it. About halfway through, I thought to myself, I might hate this movie. This might be something I absolutely detest. What the fuck is he doing? And then by the end of it, I was totally back on board again, but also completely perplexed by what I just witnessed and didn't even know how to rationalize the entire story in my head. And this just never happens almost. This really never happens where I have that type of cinematic experience where you watch a movie that becomes so engrossing that you're grappling with your own emotions as it relates to the story unfolding before your very eyes. And I think by the end of it, after watching Beau Is Afraid, I realized that this is an odyssey for a character really unlike anything else that's ever been put to screen. First thing that you do have to contend with when watching this movie is that this does not take place within the real world. This is a completely fictional reality, and it's not tethered to any actual existence that we live in. Obviously, there are things you'll recognize. It's not like we're taking place within this movie on the moon or anything of that nature, but this is a very different reality that's heightened, that's very violent and riddled with crime, and also just very strange and offbeat characters and inexplicable things that happen almost every 3 or 4 minutes in this movie. But when you distill down the story to its very basic premise, it is about Beau trying to get to his mother. And he has to go on this wild and strange odyssey almost across the country in order to achieve that. And in doing so, he's also going on this personal journey of self-reflection and also kind of this oddly psychosexual journey as well, which becomes very, very apparent throughout the story that he's grappling with some extremely traumatic incidents from his childhood as it relates to his mother, because that's what this is mostly about. It's a mother-son story and how all of these things are manifesting into the individuals that Beau meets along the way. Now, in doing so, he himself starts to have visions. He starts to reckon with things in real time. He starts to imagine different realities and different scenarios in which his life plays out. And we get to go along that journey with him. And for a lot of that stuff, you're going to totally be like, what are we doing here? What does this mean? What is the point of any of this? Why is this important to the story unfolding? And also, maybe even more frustratingly, you understand that it slows and halts the momentum multiple times throughout, because there is a certain point in the beginning in the opening act where it feels like the momentum is progressing. And then all of a sudden it just comes to a screeching halt. And that's where I found myself so frustrated with the watching of this film and the viewing experience. But then you get to the end of the second act and into the third act, and you start to see those pieces come together. You start to understand, oh, this is what it's about. This is where the judgmental nature of this relationship comes in. This is how all the stuff that happened in the childhood of Beau, our main character, starts to come to life, because he presents it in a way that becomes so tangible and so real, and you start to really understand the nature of the film. Now, for many people watching it, by that point, it probably would have already lost you, because you're firmly 2 hours and 45 minutes into the movie at that particular time. So if you're still on board, that's probably an achievement in and of itself. And I do think that that's one of the things that works against the movie is its runtime. I do think that at particular points in times in the story, the pacing could have been tightened up, and we could have probably done with a stronger 2.5 hour story as opposed to a 3 hour story. But I just got to say, Ari Aster, for him to do this, for him to make this movie and to come up with this in his head and put it to screen, it's a fucking achievement. In a day and age in which we are constantly riddled with reboots and remakes and reimaginings and all this stuff that we talk about every single week on this show, for him to come out with a completely original vision that is from his very own mind, his fucked up mind at that, is something that I have to applaud, is something that I have to give credit to, because he really is unlike anybody out there right now. He is unlike any of his contemporaries to have the guts and to have the wherewithal to be able to put a film like this to screen and to have that ambition to be able to tell this story in the way that he does, and to do so almost effortlessly in terms of its craftsmanship, the cinematography and the sound design and the shots here and the composition and the use of color and lighting here. It's all extraordinary stuff. You cannot deny that man's talent when it comes to putting images on screen, memorable images at that. And then when it comes to the story itself, I mean, the performances here, even at times of confusion, even at times of frustration, you can't deny how incredible the people are involved in this movie. Joaquin Phoenix, again, proves why he is one of the best working actors. His emotion, and also one thing I don't think we credit him enough for, his ability to be a physical actor. Joaquin Phoenix put his body... He'll put his body through anything. He's willing to fall off of shit. He's running. We talk about Tom Cruise running. Joaquin Phoenix is always running in movies. He's always fighting. He's always falling down. If you've seen him in The Master, he's getting beat up all over the place. Like, he loves to just put himself through physical turmoil for whatever reason, even at the age that he's at now. And then I also just want to shout out two other actors in this movie that really just stole the show for me. Parker Posey, who has a very, very interesting role, comes in and is just amazing. She comes in at a very pivotal moment too, because it's probably the one moment of like release that I think the audience can take. It's the one moment you can like actively laugh out loud, like it's meant to be darkly weird and darkly funny. And then lastly, Patti LuPone, who plays Joaquin Phoenix's mother for a particular portion of this movie, was out fucking standing with her performance. I mean, it is just incredible acting across the board. It makes you feel all of those tragic emotions, all of the scary things that they probably went through in their upbringing, just all manifest and come to life on screen. So what I'll just say in closing is that this movie certainly won't be for everybody. I'm not even going to recommend it personally, because I do think that the majority of people that watch this will be absolutely angry. I mean, by the end of this film, when the lights came up and the credits started rolling, it was crickets in the theater. Nobody clapped. It was like one person who clapped, and he tried to get the clap going, and nobody joined in because everybody's like, I don't even know what just happened right now. So honestly, this is a movie that I would only recommend if you are absolutely totally invested in the idea of seeing something unlike you've seen ever before. Like, you have to be on board with that. You have to be on board with being frustrated, possibly. You have to be on board with watching something that you just don't totally understand, and you still just might not understand at the end of it, you know. But I do think that for what he did and what he achieved here in the day and age of big IP, when that just rules pretty much everything that we see, for him to come in with this original concept and to execute it at the level that he did has to be commended across the board, because it's rare. It's a rarity, and he's truly, I think, kind of in a class of his own. He's a part of like maybe a handful of filmmakers where I'm like, I'm going to be in for everything that they make, regardless of how it might turn out on the other side of it, because I just have faith in their abilities to be original, to be authentic, to be thought provoking in that sense. And that's what makes it worthwhile at the end of the day. So plenty to share and plenty to say about Beau Is Afraid, but I think that that's where we have to put a pin in it for now until other people get a chance to check this movie out. But folks, those are all of our thoughts on the brand new A24 film Beau Is Afraid. when you checked out this film, if you do decide to check out this film when it widely releases, hit us up and let us know what you think.